This is the story of something that happened to a man named Daniel one stormy night. And I am going to tell you exactly what he experienced. Listen carefully, because this is not just a story, it's a warning. Daniel was a traveler, always, moving from one town to another. That night, he was driving through a lonely road, the rain hitting his windshield like tiny hammers. He had been on the road for hours and was exhausted. His phone battery was dead, and there was no sign of life anywhere. Just when he thought he might have to sleep in his car, he saw a dim light in the distance. A house. It was an old wooden house, standing alone in the darkness. The windows were foggy, and the paint was peeling off the walls. But Daniel didn't care. All he needed was a place to rest for the night. He parked his car, walked up the steps, and knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. The door creaked open by itself. "Hello," Daniel called, stepping inside. The air smelled of dust and something rotten. The wooden floor beneath him creaked as he moved forward. There was a dim, yellow light in the living room, flickering as if it could go out any second. The house looked abandoned, yet the fireplace was burning. Something wasn't right. He should have turned around and left. But exhaustion got the best of him. He called out again, "Is anyone here?" Silence. Daniel sighed and decided to wait. Maybe the owner had stepped out. He sat on the old couch, rubbing his eyes. The warmth from the fireplace made him drowsy, and before he knew it, he had dozed off. A sound woke him up. A slow, dragging sound from upstairs, like someone was pulling something heavy across the floor. Daniel sat up, his heart pounding. He stared at the ceiling, trying to figure out what he had just heard. Maybe it was just an old house settling, he told himself. But then he heard it again, a slow, deliberate movement. Then, a whisper. It was too soft to understand, but he was sure of one thing. He was not alone in the house. He grabbed his phone out of habit, but then he remembered it was dead. The whispering grew louder, like multiple voices whispering at once. Daniel stood up, his breathing heavy. "Hello?" he called, his voice shaking. The whispering stopped. Silence filled the air. Then the dragging sound started again, this time coming down the stairs. Daniel's blood turned cold. He didn't wait to see what it was. He ran to the door and pulled it open, but it wouldn't budge. It was locked. He hadn't locked it when he came in. He twisted the handle, banged on the wood, but it was useless. A creak. He turned his head slowly. There was someone standing at the top of the stairs. A shadow, tall and thin, with hollow eyes that gleamed in the darkness. It was staring at him. And then, it smiled. Daniel's scream caught in his throat. The shadow started moving down the stairs, its feet not touching the steps, just gliding forward. Daniel backed away, his mind racing. There had to be another way out. He ran toward the kitchen, looking for a back door. His hands fumbled with the knob. It was locked too. A whisper in his ear. "You shouldn't have come here." Daniel spun around, but there was no one there. The lights flickered, and in that brief moment of darkness, he felt something brush past him. Cold, like death itself. When the light returned, the shadow was right in front of him. A face twisted in agony, eyes that were empty, a mouth that stretched too wide. It reached out with long, bony fingers, and Daniel did the only thing he could. He grabbed the nearest chair and threw it through the window. Glass shattered. The wind howled outside. Without thinking, Daniel jumped out, feeling the glass cut into his skin. He hit the ground hard, but didn't stop. He ran to his car, his heart about to burst out of his chest. He yanked the door open, fumbled with the keys, and started the engine. As he sped away, he dared to look into the rearview mirror. The house stood there, silent and dark. But in the broken window, He saw it, the shadow, watching him, smiling. Daniel never spoke of that night to anyone. He never returned to that road. But sometimes, when he is alone, he hears the whispering again, and he knows that house is still waiting for someone to enter. So, if you ever find yourself lost on a dark road and see a lonely house with a dim light, do yourself a favor. Keep driving, because some doors, once entered, never let you leave.